Hello, friends. The 1028th day of the war between Russia and Ukraine continues. The Russians have taken Ganivka, thereby eliminating the pocket south of Kurakhove, which has been the subject of fighting for the past few weeks. This is evidenced by a map from the military telegram channel Deep State. Incidentally, Russian telegram channels, as well as the Ukrainian military, reported the loss of Ganivka and the elimination of the pocket several days ago. To the west, the Russians broke through to Zelenivka the day before and, according to some reports, have already consolidated their positions there and have come dangerously close to the highway that leads to Kurakhove from Zaporizhia. They are already less than 2 kilometers from the key village of Kostiantinople. If the Russians cut the highway, this threatens to create a cauldron south of Kurakhove. A lieutenant in the Ukrainian army with the call sign Alex writes that Ukrainian troops haven't yet managed to properly complete the withdrawal of units from the Uspanivka area, as the Russians are already trying to encircle the entire Kurakhove area. If they succeed, the group of troops near Kurakhove will not have normal communication routes. Only field roads, which will complicate the situation, writes Alex. To the north, the Russians again advanced near Pokrovsk. The loss of territory in Shevchenko and south of Pishtini, from where the Ukrainian counterattack was launched over the weekend, is indicated. Let me remind you that the Ukrainian military and bloggers wrote that the counterattack of the Ukrainian armed forces near Pokrovsk, which I talked about in the last video, failed and ended with serious losses. At the beginning of the counterattack, the enemy was pushed back from the village of Pishtini, after which the Ukrainian army tried to recapture the large village of Shevchenko. Our offensive on Shevchenko failed a little and the enemy was able to hold key positions, from which the attack will take place in the coming days, a soldier with the call sign Muchnoi wrote later. Former People's Deputy Mosychuk, commenting on what happened, said that as a result of the Ukrainian counteroffensive, the elite brigade of the National Guard ended up in a bag. According to him, the command sent the brigade on the offensive without adequate air and artillery support. Under such conditions, the brigade managed to recapture Pishtini, but in Shevchenko, a real catastrophe occurred, and it found itself in a fire trap. A threatening situation for the Ukrainian armed forces is developing near Velika Novosilka. There, the Russians broke through to the village of Novy Komar again the day before, through which the road from the north passes. They have consolidated their positions in part of the village and are trying to displace units of the Ukrainian armed forces from it. Let me remind you that the Russian army recently entered Novy Komar, but was driven out of there. To the south, Makarivka is under threat of encirclement. After the capture of Blagodatny, the enemy is constantly pulling infantry into the village in small groups, and also continues assault operations between Storozhevi and Makarivka in order to cut off the latter because they are not getting it. Separately, attempts are being made to enter Storozhevi itself in order to also take up positions there and consolidate their positions. In addition, Russian troops already about 1.5 kilometers from the road that leads to Velika Novosilka from the Zaporizhia region. Thus, the 2 remaining routes to the city, the northern and western ones, are now under threat of being cut off. Soon all the roads that lead from Velika Novosilka may be cut off, said a fighter with the call sign Muchnoi. According to him, for this the Russians only need to make another hard attack. Western media write about the difficult situation of the Ukrainian army in the Kursk region. According to The Economist, they are in for a gloomy Christmas there. The Russians are increasing the pressure, and they have a huge advantage in almost everything in numbers artillery equipment. They effectively alternate mechanized attacks with infantry. Ukraine has already lost about half of the territories it previously controlled, the publication writes, citing Major of the Armed Forces of Ukraine Bakarev. According to him, the problems began when, at the end of September, the elite units of the Ukrainian army were replaced by less experienced ones. Now the Russians are trying to encircle the main forces of the Ukrainians, attacking from the eastern and western flanks. All units in the Kursk region have gone on the defensive, says Bakarov. Zelensky, however, is determined to hold the area as a bargaining chip. So, the Ukrainians are holding on, although the conditions on the surface and underground are becoming increasingly difficult. Rain, slush, snow, cold, mud, bugs, worms, rats and gliding bombs, says Sergeant Makritsky of the 95th Airborne Assault Brigade. The Russians can drop up to 40 gliding bombs on one position in a few hours. Death is always near Kursk, it practically holds your hand. The publication also publishes a map of the Ukrainian presence in the Kursk region. It shows what territory Russia was able to recapture, in red and pink colors. The commander-in-chief of the Ukrainian army, Syrskyi, also announced today that Russian troops have stepped up their offensive actions. Russian telegram channels claim that the Russian army is now gradually advancing in several directions at once in the Kursk region. Ukrainian experts report enemy advances north of Novoivanovka in an area up to 5 kilometers wide and up to 3 kilometers deep. There is also increasing evidence that soldiers from North Korea have begun fighting in the Kursk region. The first footage has emerged of their probable presence on the front lines, as well as in the hospital. Friends, this channel exists solely thanks to your support. If you have the opportunity and desire to support the channel, I will be very grateful to you. I also want to ask you to leave comments. This helps promote the channel. Thank you very much and see you in the next video.